So my talk title today is Never Alone. And just do something different. I decided I want to start with a familiar Bible story about a familiar Bible character. Those of you around here a long time know I don't turn to the Bible that often, but here we go. So Adam was walking in the garden, and he cried out to God, "You used to walk with me every day. Now I do not see you anymore. I'm lonely here, and it's difficult for me to remember how much you love me." And God said, "I will create a companion for you that will be with you forever and who will be a reflection of my love for you, so that you will love me even when you cannot see me. Regardless of how selfish or childish or unlovable you may act at times, this new companion will accept you just as you are and will love you unconditionally just as I do." And God created a new companion for Adam. And it was a good companion. And God was pleased, and the new companion was pleased to be with Adam, and wagged its tail. And Adam said, "Lord, I have named all the animals in the kingdom, and I cannot think of a name for this new animal." And God said, "Because I have created this new companion to be a reflection of my love for you, his name will be a reflection of my own name, and you will call him Dog." And Dog lived with Adam and was a companion for him and loved him. And Adam was comforted, and God was pleased, and Dog was content and wagged his tail. After a while it came to pass that Adam's guardian angel came to the Lord and said, "Lord, Adam has become filled with pride. He struts and preens like a peacock. He demands praise and adoration. Dog has indeed taught him that he is loved, but perhaps too well." And the Lord said, "I will create for him a companion who will be with him forever and who will see him as he is. The companion will remind him of his humanness, so he will know that he does not always deserve praise and adoration." And God created Cat to be a companion to Adam. And Cat would not obey Adam. And when Adam gazed into Cat's eyes, he was reminded that he was not the supreme being. And so it came to pass that Adam learned humility. And God was pleased, and Adam was greatly improved. And Dog was happy, and Cat didn't care one way or another. So as I said, our monthly theme is Cosmic Connections, and today my talk title is Never Alone, so I thought a funny little story fit at least a little bit, but mostly I just thought it was cute and we needed a chuckle this morning. So I think we can all relate to Adam's dilemma in that story. Adam, in this silly story, said, "I'm alone here, and it's difficult to remember how much I am loved." There is not a one of you here that has not at times felt alone and forgotten how much you are loved. And as life circumstances have gotten challenging over the last several months, I would imagine that all of us have felt this aloneness from time to time. So let's talk a little bit about what spirituality teaches us about that. So I'm going to start with our founder, Ernest Holmes. He says, "No man ever walks life's road alone. There is ever another who walks with him. This is his inner self, the undying reality with a capital R, which his personality but poorly emulates. Let us learn to be still, and let the truth speak through us, to be still and know that inner light shines." So Ernest Holmes makes it very clear we're never alone walking this road of life. We never are alone. We have within us this inner life, this light, this inner self. But that still seems kind of like a lonely explanation to me. So let's look at a more modern day message about that. I love Brene Brown. Everything I read that she has written, is kind of spot on. It's relatable to me. I seek out her videos and her blogs, and I've read her books. I believe she is one of the modern day spiritual teachers that combines science and spirituality beautifully. And I think Ernest Holmes would approve, actually, of Brene Brown's messages. And here's a quote of hers that about spirituality that I want to share with you this morning. Spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. So I love the word inextricably connected, right? I love that. So the definition of inextricably is in a way that is impossible to disentangle or separate. So what she's saying is that we are connected to spirit and to each other in a way that is impossible to disentangle or separate. Then she goes on to say that that connection, which you can't disconnect and separate, is grounded in love and compassion. Following a spiritual path is about recognizing and celebrating that connection. That's what we're here for. And I think Brene and Ernest are kind of saying the same thing. What they're saying is we have within us a source of connection, an inner fountain of love that's always flowing freely. We just have to drink from it. We just have to turn to it. So what do we do? You know, as spiritual seekers, when we are feeling alone and uncertain about how much we are loved, what do we do? What do? We stop and we recognize and we celebrate our connection to spirit and to everyone else that can never be untangled or separated. And in that recognition and celebration, we reach for the love and compassion that's always available to us, always available to us. Within our own being, it's always there. Right below the surface of all this going on up here, there's love and compassion, always right there waiting. And when we feel alone and separate, we whip down into that. And I'm going to point out that the beginning of our prayers, so those of you who've been in classes, you know that we start our prayers with spiritual mind treatments, affirmative prayers, whatever you want to call them. We start them off with recognition and celebration that spirit is always present and immensely powerful, loving, peaceful, good, and all the other things we recognize in it. We start that way. And then we remember in the prayer that we are immersed in that presence all the time, unified with that presence. So if you're ever feeling alone, I invite you to drop into that affirmation that God is always present in me as love and compassion. I am never alone. We are inseparable from God because it is the life energy that pulses in our bodies. If you feel your hands right now and become aware, that life intensity is God itself. It's our very breath. It's our life. So how do we know that we are never alone and always connected? What is the signal that indicates that we are unified with spirit? I talked about that last week, but I'm going to remind you. The telltale sign is inner peace. It's inner peace. And when we are experiencing inner peace, we are feeling, we've whipped into that love and compassion that's inside of us. That's what is the source of that peace. So what keeps us feeling separate and alone? What disrupts this inner peace and blocks us from feeling that love and compassion that's our birthright? Someone once called it stinking thinking. I like that. Thoughts of divisiveness and judgment about human stuff. Those are the kinds of thoughts that create barriers to our connections with others and with spirit itself. So here's the deal. All of us have had experiences of heartbreak and challenge. We all have. We get hurt by people around us. And it usually starts when we are very young. Often that hurt comes in relationship with those people we love so much, with our family members, and then it kind of goes out in life into our school experiences and our church experiences and friendships and relationships and dating and all that stuff. That hurt just kind of keeps sprinkling around. Life is full of disappointing stuff. And if we aren't carefully monitoring our thinking process, it's easy to build walls of protection around us. You know, we begin to believe that other people are harmful, that religion is unsafe, that we all fall victim to others who are going to take advantage of us. Our thoughts of self-protection and non-forgiveness seem to serve us well, don't they? And before you know it, we are trapped in a fortress of our own making, totally separate from love and compassion and God itself, or so it seems. You know, maybe I'm just thinking about my own life before spirituality, but I bet I'm not the only one who found themselves very unpeaceful and unloving and lacking compassion. And then one day, I picked up a book. I picked up a book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. In it, she said this: "In the absence of love, we began slowly but surely to fall apart." I had slowly but surely fallen apart. I had absolutely fallen away from everyone and everything else. I was inside that fortress. I was standing alone, and love seemed the farthest thing from me. I was afraid of love. I was afraid of love at that point in my life. Love hurt. I just kept getting into a situation where love hurt. Maybe you've been at that spot in your own life and can relate, but I knew deep within me that I did need love. And then I read this. Marianne says, "When infants aren't held, they can become sick and even die. It's universally accepted that children need love, but at what age are people supposed to stop needing it? We never do. We need love in order to live happily as much as we need oxygen in order to live at all." And that struck me. And here's the cool thing: because the universe knows that each of us needs love to live, it implanted itself deep inside of our very beings and deep inside everyone and everything else too. Love is there. It is only in our illusion of separation that we seem to fall outside the reach of love. And it is only as we remove that illusion that we wake up and realize that love is who we are. And love is available within us and within our experiences with everyone else. It is our very nature to want community, to establish a sense of belonging to the tribe, to the group, to the circle. We go against our nature when we declare ourselves alone and separate. It's not the truth of our being. It's just not. And once I began to uncover the truth of my highest identity, and once I began to align myself with the truth, instead of hiding inside my fortress of self-protection and isolation, I found that community. I found that sense of belonging. I found my tribe and my group and my circle. I looked around and found faces of friendly people, reflecting my own friendliness back to me. I learned in spirituality, and maybe some of you learned this here too, that every face is the face of God. And I can tell you, I never heard that before. I was never taught anything like that. But once I began to see people as the face of God itself, I could see them as the face of love. I began to look at people around me very differently. Perhaps they were here to teach me something. And I have a quote from Marianne that's way too long to put on the screen. Lori would have killed me. But I'm going to read a passage from A Return to Love that helped me understand why some people left my life when I didn't want them to leave. Or I felt like I had to end a relationship that I didn't really want to end. And in the book, she talks about different levels of relationships. And this paragraph is about these third level or lifelong relationships. So just indulge me a long quote. She says this: "Lifelong relationships are generally few because their existence implies that those involved in such a relationship have reached a stage simultaneously in which the teaching and learning balance is actually perfect. That doesn't mean, however, that we necessarily recognize these third level assignments. In fact, generally we don't. We may even feel hostility towards these particular people. Someone with whom we have a lifetime's worth of lessons to learn is someone whose presence in our lives forces us to grow. Sometimes it represents someone with whom we participate lovingly all of our lives, and sometimes it represents someone who we just experience as a thorn in our side for years or even forever. Just because someone has a lot to teach us doesn't mean we like them. People who have the most to teach us are often the ones who reflect back to us the limits to our own capacity to love. Those who consciously or unconsciously challenge our fearful positions. They show us our walls. Our walls are our wounds, the places where we feel we can't love anymore, can't connect anymore deeply, can't forgive past a certain point. We are in each other's lives in order to help us see where we most need healing in order to help us heal. Take a deep breath. This book helped me see relationships very differently. If a relationship was challenging or seemed to come to an end, I began to realize that there were important lessons for me in that, and for the other person, right? Most were not that level of relationship. You know, most people aren't at that level, and they kind of come and go in our lives pretty quickly, don't they? But these others, they evolved into connections that continue to serve me over a long period of time. And I learned that my outlook on things was key to my happiness. I learned that love was inside of me, ready to be extended to anyone and everyone if I could choose a positive outlook. If I could choose that positive outlook, then I could be happy. So I have another little story to illustrate that. So there was this couple, and they were seated in a railroad car. And the wife was loudly complaining about everything that came her way. And the husband apologized to their table companion. You know, in trains before COVID, I suppose, you had table companions in the train. And so he was apologizing to the table companion, saying that he hoped that he wasn't too greatly bothered by his wife. His wife, he said, had a lot on her mind because she was a manufacturer. And this was a rather surprising statement to the table companion because she seemed anything but businesslike. And so the table companion asked the husband, so what does she manufacture? And without skipping a beat, her husband replied, unhappiness. We chuckle, but we understand the message in that story, don't we? It's our own interpretation of every little thing, everything going on, that manufactures either happiness or unhappiness. It's our own interpretation of everyone around us that either manufactures a sense of belongingness or a sense of aloneness and isolation. So before finding spirituality, so many of us are manufacturing our story of isolation and differences. We believe that our particular wounding story justifies our decision to travel alone in the world, or with only a very select few. But here we discover that we can release our attachment to our story and step into manufacturing love and compassion for ourselves and everyone else. We begin to understand that we are all connected through the divine intelligence. That's what connects us. And it runs through the center of life and everything, and we begin to start to trust that intelligence. We start to trust that that divine intelligence is what puts us in connection with particular people to help us learn and grow and challenge our stories. So get curious about why people are in your life. What are you here to teach me? I often ask people who kind of suddenly show up in my life, what were you praying for that drew me into your life? Or what was I praying for that caused you to show up? Or better yet, why are you still here? Interesting questions if we answer them from a spiritual perspective. Can you look at your life that way, right? You know, your showing up is the answer to someone's prayers, someone's deepest desires. So what are you bringing to the picture? What role are you playing in someone else's life, someone else's healing and growth? Make the decision to show up and bring your connection to that love and compassion. We belong to each other. Wholeness and oneness depends on each of us awakening to that in greater and greater degrees. My healing is interconnected with your healing. My love and compassion for the world is connected to your love and compassion too. We kind of weave a cloth of life together because we are here together. So the lesson today is to stay open to connection. We stay inextricably connected to God, to ourselves, and to our spiritual community, because when we believe there is only spirit interacting with itself, there is nothing to withdraw from. There is nothing to fear. Our invitation is to stay open and to receive. When we trust ourselves and we trust God, we can keep our hearts and minds and souls open to receive love and receive compassion and receive all the good that is available to us when we trust other people. We're always invited to tear down those fortresses around our hearts, to release any barriers, to surrender, just surrender these old stories that we've built around ourselves to protect us, to prevent us from connecting. So I want to quote Mother Teresa.
Just me.
She said, "If we have no peace, it's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And once we accept that we belong to each other, then we can indeed return to love." So one last quote from Marianne. "May my heart be your shelter and my arms be your home." And I want to finish where I started. Sometimes I want you to know that when we are most alone, the greatest comfort that God extends to us is often the love of an animal. You know, Maisie, my little puppy, has been an amazing source of love for me over the past 4 months that I've had her. And I know that I'm not the only animal lover in the room. You know, in our pandemic video that Ellen and Lori made, I saw how important our pets really are to us. And I want to name some of them. I saw Mambo and Sherman and Kendi and some chickens and Busha and Nugget and Moonbeam and Miranda and Scoot and Panda and Ren and Foxy. And then not pictured were Onyx and Dharma and Random and Newt. We love our babies. And those are just some of the ones named in the piece. So I believe that the energy of life shows up through our beloved pets, and it's the same energy that shows up through other people, through every sentient being on our planet. They too are a source of great blessing for us. We truly are never, ever alone. And so I invite you to close with me on our one sentence affirmation. I affirm that I am never alone, and that love is the truth of my life. And so it is.